Facilities management has gained greater importance over the last few years, and businesses have started to identify that well-managed buildings and utilities help companies function more effectively and efficiently. Although it's still important, facilities management has gone beyond the tactical elements of day-to-day service delivery and has become actively involved in the strategic planning activities that help in cutting costs, increasing employee productivity, and improving that end-user experience. Today, we'll be discussing facilities management and how technology and digitalization can help us with our strategic choices. Our first guest is privileged to be working on a project which captures how the built environment is shaping up under digital modeling and transformation. What's interesting from a facilities and property professionals is how this is starting to shape the built environment, what it will look like in the future, and how service providers will need to adapt and change to meet these new digital demands. So for our first session, I'd like to introduce David Glennon, who's the Digital Delivery Director of the Red Sea in Saudi Arabia. He oversees the implementation of new innovative digital technology and across this luxury tourism destination, which is located on the Red Sea as part of the Kingdom's Vision 2030. David will be talking us through the digital modeling of the project and the impact of BIM on Giga-projects. Hello, David.
Okay, well, thank you for that introduction, and good morning, everyone. And I'd like to thank you all for the opportunity to give this keynote on the impact of BIM on Giga-projects. So, as you know, I'm David Glennon. I'm the Digital Delivery Director here at the Red Sea. And I think it's great that that this is part of the facilities management stream. I think it's critical to the success of any BIM or digital project to start with the end in mind. In this session, I'll be discussing BIM. I'll be discussing digital twins. We'll also be describing our smart destination strategy, and also how bringing all of these together can bring value to the life cycle of your project. And I hope that this is a good springboard for the rest of today's interesting agenda. So, as part of Vision 2030, it's a vision to create a vibrant society, a thriving economy for an ambitious nation. And one of those programs, the Public Investment Fund, is embarked on 3 ambitious Giga-projects, of which one of those is the Red Sea project. And this is a unique luxury tourist destination. It's going to set new standards for sustainable development. It's really going to create a new category for tourism, and also put the Kingdom of Saudi Arabia, on the international tourist map. As well as that, will also be driving diversity in the economy. We'll be generating new jobs and contributing to GDP. And this is the destination itself. It's on the west coast of Saudi Arabia. It's about 700 kilometers north of Jeddah. It's by a town of Luj. The site itself it's about 28,000 square kilometers, and that's quite hard to visualize. But to give you some sort of context, it's about the size of Belgium. And again, on this graphic here, you can see the size of the potential tourism market. So you've got much of Europe and Asia within 6, 7, 8 hours of the destination, and the Americas just over 10 hours. This is it's a Giga project, so it's supported by the government, and here you can see our board. We have our chairman, His Royal Highness the Crown Prince Mohammed bin Salman. We've got a number of ministers on our board. We also have the CEO of NEOM, one of our sister projects. And here you can see a picture of John Pagano, our CEO, and he is probably one of the greatest supporters of digital delivery. He relentlessly challenges the status quo, and he's always driving for improvement and innovation. So what I'll do now is I'll describe a bit about what we're delivering, both from the destination perspective, but also from the experiences. And it's an absolutely stunning environment. I'm lucky I get to visit there, at least once a month, and it's just simply, jaw-dropping. We've got beautiful beaches, stunning shorelines, crystal clear water. You can see it on the top image there. I mean, it's beautiful blue water. And on the bottom right, you'll see some of the amazing coral that we have at our site as well. In the middle, you've got the hawksbill turtle. That's just one of many endangered species in the area. And it's it's a really diverse destination. We have, as well as those wonderful beaches, you can see here we've got volcanoes and mountains and beautiful dunescapes. So we've got that alongside a number of experiences, and this is really to attract many different types of travellers, and give some diversity in your vacation. And I suppose by having these different destinations and these different experiences, what we're really encouraging you to do is to go and experience everything that Saudi Arabia has to offer. Now, as already mentioned, we're setting new standards for sustainable development, and we're aligned to the UN Sustainable Goals. But I'll call out a couple of examples that you can see here. So one is 100% reliance on renewable energy, and that's 24 hours a day. And another one, and that's creating jobs and career paths for the local community. And again, we're doing that right now today. We do have an example in digital delivery, similar to that, where we are transforming the quite traditional role of document control, and we're creating information managers. So after extensive training, both in the processes and the standards and the technologies, we're giving these information managers new career paths, and that could be BIM, it could be PMO, could even be in design. And this slide here shows our hospitality offering, from premium all the way through to hyper luxury, and many different types of experience, whether it's out on the islands or inland resorts, such as in the desert and the mountain there. But what I'd if you want more information on that, what I'd really do is encourage you to go to look at our latest campaign, Breaking New Ground, or look at our Vision to Reality site, and you can spend a lot of time looking at some of these visuals, understanding what they're going to be like in reality, and see some of these fantastic designs from some of the best international consultants available. So a good signpost to that would be through our social media channels. And this is the site itself. We've got an archipelago of around 90 islands. Phase one is what we're looking at here. You'll see there's a number of assets to be developed over the water. You've got the airport, to be well worth having a look at that, fantastic design. And then two inland sites there, Desert Rock and Southern Dunes. If you look on the top left-hand side, you'll see the date 2022, and that's where when we're handing over our first asset. So it's under 700 days from now. I'll show you now where we're headed, and this is the overall development. I'll draw you to, there's many more destinations and developments there to be activated, but I'll draw your attention to the green pins that you can see there, and these are areas that have been set aside for conservation. We've worked very closely with our scientists to ensure that we've got the right areas to be left untouched and they can be conserved, because we don't want to cause any harm there. Not only is it just the right thing to do, but it's also one of the reasons why people will be wanting to come to this destination. And here's some of that story in numbers, and the different types of assets that we'll be creating. But why have I told you all of this? It's because this is what describes our purpose, and we've got a really clear vision of what it is that we're trying to achieve, and that's been shared all through our organisation. It's been shared through our project partners, our supply chain, and it's by focusing on that, that's where BIM can have a real impact. I don't know if you've ever been on projects and someone's told you must use BIM, or brought in a new technology, and no one really knows why. Maybe it feels like it's something that's been put on you, or it's someone's pet project. But I think, as I've described, we've got those drivers from sustainability, the quality to create these hyper luxury assets, and the time constraints that we have to get delivered by the end of 2022. It's quite clear that cannot be delivered through traditional methods. So everything that we do in digital delivery, and specifically BIM, is all driving a response to those challenges. But as a development company, it's not just about this project. We're building a platform for the future. And this is our digital strategy. It's sort of set over 3 horizons. On the left-hand side, we have a project-centric focus. And then we have a data-centric focus, and then finally a customer-centric focus. So the project-centric focus, that's really where we're building our foundations. We're building stable systems and processes. And we're doing that to enable our projects to onboard quickly, but then also to operate in the most efficient way we can. Data centricity, this is where we're really starting to focus on how we generate and capture the data, and we can improve the efficiency of how we work through automation and eventually drive better data-driven insights. And then finally, the customer-centric focus. This is where we're enabling our smart destination, which I'll briefly describe later. But its main focus is to understand how we drive, better customer experience. And this isn't a linear process, although that shows it here, we're having to start all of those at the same time, but we're just applying different focus to different areas, depending on where we are with our maturity. I suppose where we are now, we're shifting from project-centric into a data-centric world now, and I'm comfortable that the foundations are in place. But what I'll do is I'll do a bit of a deep dive on each of those. So focusing on our project, the project-centric focus, as I said, this is where we're building our foundations. And I'll talk about the three acronyms that you can see there on the left. So I'll start at the bottom, our PMIS, our Project Management Information System. This has been built on an Oracle stack. So we're using the likes of AConnect Project Delivery, AConnect Connected Cost, Primavera P6. And it's effectively where we administer our contract. This is where we'll see planning activities, cost and commercial activities, collaboration. It's really a cornerstone of how the project is being delivered. And we've worked hard on that cornerstone to make sure all of those processes and technologies are integrated. The next one, GIS, or Geospatial Information System. So if you imagine trying to manage a project the size of Belgium, we need a system that brings all of that together so we can understand the landscape and put everything into context. The types of data that we're seeing in there, we've got a lot of survey data, including LiDAR data, bathymetric data for our marine environment. But we've also been out using drones scanning, laser scanning, 3D scanning the environment there, bringing that together so that people can sort of feel what it's like there when you're on the ground, even if you're based not there on site or in another country. We're currently working on a portal to open that up to all project members, so it'll be much easier to get that experience. And then finally, our BIM push. So we've got a common data environment. We're using Autodesk BIM 360, and that's been provided to everyone, all our project team members, our supply chain. And that's important because, well, especially recently, where we've had a number of organisations working remotely, it's meant we've been able to continue to work through that and to keep our pace. Much of that is driven through an international standard, so ISO 19650. It's an international standard related to good practice digital delivery of design and construction. And we have aligned to the UK National Annex. So we've been leaning heavily on the work that the UK BIM Alliance does. I very much recommend that you go and have a look at the resources that they have produced. It will really enable you to deliver a good practice or best practice digital project, especially looking at BIM and how to mobilize quickly. And that's landed very well internationally because we're working with partners all over the world. And by having that international standard, it means that we're all talking the same language and we've got a common understanding of what it is we're trying to deliver. Some of the benefits from that, it's enabled our integrated design process. We've got one example of that is our big room reviews. We've got one of those going on at the moment. And what it allows us to do is to bring many different disciplines and different stakeholders, our executive team, into a room. We can put the model up on the screen and we can spend time interrogating what's there, making sure that we've got all the comments there, and can really sort of understand what the experience will be when we're in that asset. We're also using some lean design techniques, and that's sort of removing waste, but allows us to make sure that we've got all the issues and comments and actions in one place, so we can track that and manage that through the design process. One of the other things that we're doing is dynamic cost modeling, so using Costex as a technology, and as the design progresses, we're able to automatically bring down quantities and changes in materials, and that then allows us to very quickly see what the impact has been on our cost plan and then therefore our budget. But the biggest benefit is yet to come, and this is where we've really focused in on the data. So we've spent a lot of time looking at classification, looking at tagging. It's not one of the more exciting tasks to do, But what it's allowed us to do is to build the connectors in place, ready to use or reuse data. So for example, as the facilities management team or the asset management team, as they start to get more heavily involved, we're able to easily connect them into the work that's been done. There's another picture. So then now moving on to our data-centric focus. And as I say, this is where I'm starting to put my energy now. But this is where we start to unlock the value of our data. I've spoken about automation. We've eliminated a lot of waste from internal processes. It's removed hours of effort per week for our staff. And that's real time that they've got back. We're now working with our supply chain to help identify areas of waste there and remove those. We're looking now at the automation of our construction teams or the construction activity. We're utilising modern methods of construction, off-site manufacturing, design for manufacture and assembly. It's how can we use automation there to achieve the quality, improve health and safety, reduce the risk of our delivery. And again, all through that, we're generating data, and we can link that to data we're generating on site at the moment. So we've got a lot of sensors out there. We've got cameras, we've got access control systems. And by bringing those together, I can see us really starting to shift the dial. I think as artificial intelligence becomes more mainstream and we're seeing that the cost of the technology there start to reduce, I think we're starting to move towards data-driven insights. And I think that's important. I mean, typically in a meeting, you will get a report that is perhaps at best 2 weeks out of date. So you're there trying to make decisions on activity that has happened in the past. So you're effectively driving your car looking in your rear view mirror. If there's a way that we can change that focus into something close to real-time information or using things like artificial intelligence to help us predict the future, we can start to make some real interventions. And I think that's what requires when you're looking at a project at this scale. And as well as that, it also enables our people to spend less time crunching the numbers or finding ways to present that data. By using the technology, it gives more time for people to think, more time for people to use their brains. And then that's where we start to get some really sort of valuable insights. And that, as I say, that's where our focus is now. And then finally moving on to our customer-centric focus. And this is putting our guest experience into the center of everything that we do. And particularly in relation to our smart destination strategy. The main bit here, certainly for me and my team, is the creation of that digital twin. And what we're effectively doing here is creating a virtual copy of all our physical assets. And we're doing that through the design and construction process. And that has data attached to it. And as we start to attach that to live feeds from sensors, we're starting to understand how our assets are going to live and how they're going to breathe, and we can see how they're operating whilst in flight. So you can imagine getting feedback from customer experience and using that to influence how you manage your facility or use that to influence your future designs. I think that is very powerful. And we've got an opportunity to do that now. So we're building using BIM, we've got the data and that's coming in feeds. And what that's allowing us to do is to test and pilot on our digital twin now. And we're doing that in construction. And so then that enables us to be ready for our smart destination. So to talk briefly about smart destination, here's a fairly small example of some of our smart destination services, of which the digital twin is a sort of a critical part of that. And I suppose this is really where I believe that BIM can impact Giga-projects. Because we're starting with the end in mind. For us, everything is leading towards that customer experience, but we're using that to get some other benefits along the way. There's some of the benefits I've described in BIM through design and construction and handover. We're able to drive efficiency and better decision making, therefore improving time, cost, quality, and that's really that's really what affects the business case. I'll talk briefly about some of our approach in digital delivery and how we're using some lean startup principles. So if we were to build a car, this seems like a reasonable way to do it. You'll find a wheel, find another wheel, create a chassis, and then bit by bit build the car until you get to the end and it's created. And as you can see, the experience for the customer they're not having a good experience until the car is delivered, and everyone's happy. Well, we've taken to the lean startup idea, and we're applying that to the work that we do. And so I suppose by sort of slightly changing the question, rather than how do you make a car, it's more how do we get from A to B. We can start to use a skateboard or a scooter and improve it, and use a bike, and then a motorbike. I suppose, as you can see here, you're getting better customer experience along the way, but probably the most important bit is you're able to test that experience with the customer, and make improvements, so that when you get to the end and you've created a car, not only is it a better car, the customer has had a better experience, but that's also been because it's been driven by their requirements. So we're effectively using that in digital delivery, forever trying, getting things out early, trying them, testing them, and iterating on them, so that we can get to a good final product with better customer experience. And I'll briefly look at some digital facilities management trends. And I think there's a real push-pull here with BIM. With the emergence of 5G and the Internet of Things, it's really going to enable digital facilities management. It will enable the mass use of sensors. The capacity through 5G of the data feeds is absolutely game-changing. I'll briefly look at personalization. So as per the smart destination that we're doing, we're able to tailor our customer experience to the customer. And that's now becoming expected. It's no longer a nice to have. So it won't be such a differentiator. And I'll leave you with one to ponder, and that's robotics and self-healing components. So I think this will really change the facilities management landscape. The technologies that are being used will change. Business models, operating models will change. Crucially, the skills that are required are going to change as well. Well, we're soon running out of time, so I'll leave it there, and I'm happy to answer any questions.
Thanks, David. It must be a really great privilege to be working on such an iconic project, especially one when it's pushing the boundaries of innovation and technologies. I think that when we often hear about technology, we tend to see that it kind of removes this human interface that we've got. And I think that with the project that you've got, what you're doing is you've mentioned about this hyper luxury experience. How do you use technology to kind of bring that together, especially given the digital path that you're following?
Yeah, so that's it's like you raise a very interesting point, and I think we can sort of see some examples of how we've tackled things like that, even quite recently. So in that period of remote working, there's quite a change in practice, a change in how we collaborated and came together. So I think, as you heard in the presentation, we created a platform, and that was available for us internally, but we also made that available externally for our partners and our supply chain. But that alone doesn't then bring that human interaction together. So, for example, if you remember, we talked about some using lean design principles. Yep. One of those is the big room review, which is where we'll bring a model up on the screen, and we'll get all our stakeholders in, and we'll review the asset that we're creating, look at design, construction methodology, and sometimes that process can be quite creative. So you have to have that human element there. And therefore you have to put effort into behaviours. So sometimes it's quite simple. It could be things like planning, making sure that you know the purpose for why you're together, or just things that seem to be forgotten these days, like creating an agenda. So you've got planning there, you've got people, so making sure that you've got the right people in the room to make a decision, or could be sort of recognizing that different people work in different ways. So there will naturally be people who are quiet in a room, and it's finding a way to be inclusive and bring them in, and there'll be others that will often dominate in a room, and it's finding a way to help manage that. And I think that translates all the way through to, so how do we do that with the with the experience that we're giving our guests? Yeah. So even with these hyper luxury hotels, I used to travel a lot with work in the past, and there was one hotel that we used to use, and it was highly automated. But you know what? That didn't give me the experience that I wanted. After traveling for 4 hours, working for 12 hours, I wanted to go to a hotel and someone to give me a nice welcome and tell me where I needed to go and tell me where breakfast was. I was, I was tired. So it keeps reminding me that service is key. And I think
What's interesting, sorry, David, I think what's interesting about your project is that there are so many individual components to it. If you was building an airport in isolation or a hotel in isolation of anything else, there would be significant projects in their own right. And what you're doing is you're building a whole community and destination environment.
Yeah.
At the end of it, how are you bringing all that technology together? You're looking at kind of having a single platform that brings all those buildings into one?
Yeah, so I think what we're describing there is that smart destination strategy or the smart destination theme. And one of the things that we're doing as part of that, and as how we bring that service element into it, is by creating an environment where it can be personalized for people. People can engage with the environment, learn about what's going on with the environment, but also give them a highly convenient experience. So moving that service element up from perhaps something transactional, low value, into something that's a bit of an experience multiplier, as it were. And we're doing that through smart destination. And the bit that certainly I'm delivering with digital delivery is the digital twin, and that's a sort of cornerstone to enable all of these, enable that whole experience to come together.
Just explain that a bit more. You say digital twin. I know you talked about it in your presentation, but just explain that in a little bit more detail.
Okay. So all the work that we're doing at the moment, certainly through design, and it will be the same as we go through construction, we're creating a replica, a digital replica of what these physical assets are going to be. And then at the same time, out on the assets, we've got sensors, and we've got different data feeds coming together. And we're able to plug those two together. And what that allows us to do is to, perhaps run simulations, sort of see what changes we make, how will that affect customer experience? Do we notice things that happen in the destination when environmental factors change? It just allows us to sort of get a better understanding of what it feels like when you're in a destination. So hence the BIM and the sensors come together and make that digital twin.
I think one of the things that you mentioned in your presentation that I did find really interesting was when you talked about the change in skill sets that you're needing and the change in titles. And I think the example that you gave was document controllers becoming information managers. That for me is really interesting in terms of progression. I mean, how do you see that that's going to affect FM operators in the future in terms of more broadly about how they're going to need to change and adapt, certainly in terms of being able to manage a project such as yours?
Okay, all right. So I'll briefly talk about that role change, and for us, the transformation was, it was a bit of a no-brainer. So that you can see with the way the world is changing, we've got less reliance on documents, more reliance on data. So you could see the role naturally, the document controller role shifting, but a lot of the skills that they have, been able to communicate, collaborate, run quality. Understand what processes are. A lot of those are still very relevant in the data age. So it made sense to enable the project, but also hit some of our sustainability goals of, creating new roles, creating new skills. And we're able to do that through training and coaching. It was a no-brainer that there was a sort of a burning platform to go make that happen. Yeah. From a facilities management perspective, I think that the same will happen and potentially at a much bigger scale. So I think with the way that data will impact facilities management, there's a real opportunity for new business models, and that in itself will also bring new roles. So, for example, having all the sensors that I spoke about a moment ago, that will allow us to understand how our buildings are performing. And we could see, the way that we carry out facilities management change. So, for example, let's say the sensors are letting us know that a component in a room isn't working or needs some maintenance. Perhaps some of that could be pre-approved. So as soon as the sensor lets us know there's an issue, we can straight away, someone can come out and fix it without having to go through a process in the middle to get that approved. And again, we're immediately starting to strip out some waste and potentially improve customer experience. As well as that, we can also see how spaces are being used. And that can allow the facilities management professionals to perhaps make smarter decisions and maybe start to focus on things like customer experience and see how spaces can be used in a better way, rather than necessarily focusing on, say, planned maintenance plans or some of the reactive work that goes on.
David, I could talk to you all day about this. I mean, I think you've got it's such a massive project. It's great to talk to you, and seriously, I could talk to you all day about it, because I mean, this is exactly what today is about. It's about technology and digitalization. And I think to be able to have a role such as yours, there are many people that are watching this that will be extremely envious. So I hope that we'll be able to take it away, pick up the learnings that you've made, and bring those forward. So thank you very much for your time. It's been great talking to you. Much appreciated, and thank you for your presentation.
Thank you.
Good to see you. Thank you, David. Thank you.